Welcome to Happy Homes and Gardens. I'm your host. My name is Daphne Royse. I am a real estate broker, architecture, and interior designer. Having a place to call home is important. Having a comfortable bed to sleep at night is essential. We spend 1/3 of our life asleep in bed, and rest is essential to health and well-being. Heather Kearsley Wolf has spent more than 20 years serving our communities with the highest quality of linens, downs, and cashmere from Italy and around the world. Please welcome Heather, and she will tell us everything you need to know about bedding. Hello, Heather.
Hello, Daphne. Thank you for having me on your show.
Can you tell us about you and how you start Kearsley Home business?
Absolutely. I have a similar background to you, as we learned when we met each other. And I went to school for architecture, graduated with a degree in construction management from Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. I went off and did that for a little bit. And then I simultaneously did my graduate studies in interior design while doing an internship with Barbara Olson in Los Angeles. And she was a phenomenal expert on bed linens. And it was a starting point for every bedroom in her houses. It wasn't an afterthought. And so I was trained very, very well as an interior designer to allow adequate funding and adequate thought around bedding for every bedroom design. And I went on to have a good career and started Kearsley Design as an interior design firm, doing high-end residential, houses ranging from like 8,000 square feet to 42,000 square feet. And really was finding, while I was buying Protesi and Frette and lots of those beautiful long-time Italian brands, I loved one of Lisa Galimberti's patterns called Athena. I was having trouble finding bed linens for mainly my clients that were men. And I was really finding in that era, it was like 1998, I'd say I started running into this issue where men were really building big houses for themselves, multiple houses, for the first time as single men. They weren't waiting to get married. And it was changing what I needed to supply the homes for my clients. And, it's very different to do a 1 to 2 bedroom apartment for a gentleman than it is to do 3 7-bedroom houses, for example. Suddenly your bedding needs are very different. And what a lot of designers do is either just go with all white. The biggest problem I ran into was I was doing what most designers do. And I was buying fabrics from the design center, which I adore, that aren't necessarily made for bedding. They can't be washed. They don't breathe properly. They may be too heavy, and making coverlets and duvet covers and pillow shams. And while that's beautiful for things you're not going to be sleeping with, what I was finding with my couples that didn't necessarily want something fluffy. And there's so many beautiful luxury bed linen companies that have really feminine, gorgeous looking bedding. That's not what I needed for these clients, either for the couples or for the men. I had been on a trip in Florence in 1994, and I had bought this beautiful pillow sham from Yeserum. It wasn't what I wanted. I knew whoever made that pillow sham could make what I needed. I think I mentioned the funny story to you that I had come into one of my clients' houses. He was in Napa on vacation, and we had just finished this beautiful bedding for him. And he and his girlfriend had been using the bedding for the afternoon. And suddenly he came in and he said, "I now have to take this to the dry cleaner." He's like, that can't be possible. And then, it was just all coming together at once, this reality of what was out there and what I needed to do. I was 29. I was totally blonde. I didn't speak any Italian. And I decided I was going to fly to Italy, rent a car. This is pre-GPS, with this pillow sham and find out who made it. And I was going to design bed linens and make them. One of my dear friends and clients paid for my staff. At the time, we were designing a a 5-star, fairly large hotel, plus several large private properties. And I had about 15 employees that had to be paid for, plus our rent. And one of my clients said, "How long do you think this is going to take?" And I said, "Well, 2 months." And he's like, "Okay." So he paid for our company for 2 months so I could leave. It's that clarity of vision. You see it so often when someone's so clear about what they want to do, things fall into place. And this was definitely one of those instances. I got on the plane and I think I was flying to Frankfurt from San Francisco, and then I was going to go Frankfurt, Milan. And I get on the plane and I was in business class next to this lady, and I was so excited. I had this vision. I was going to make this happen. The flight attendant came over and said, took our drink order. And then the woman walked away and she said, "Where are you going?" And I said, "Italy." And she said, "Oh, you must be going to see a man." And I said, "No, I'm going." And told her the whole story. And so then the flight attendant came back and gave us our drinks. And the woman next to me said, "Cheers. I have the cell phone number for the woman who owns the mill who made that pillow jam."
Wow.
So we were still, ramping up, taking off out of San Francisco. And there it was. And I landed Frankfurt and I got off the phone and called the woman. And I ended up changing my flight. Instead of to Milan, I went into northern Italy, a little further north. And I stayed for 2 weeks and we designed 5 collections. I sold my house and we were off to the races with the company. That's how it started. And obviously that was 22 years ago when we launched. The market has changed significantly 3 times. How people buy has changed. Quite frankly, in some cases, what people need has changed. So I've been through a lot, learned a lot. But the 3 things we've always stayed with, no matter what we've been doing, have been that everything we do is ethically made. It's ecologically friendly. And it's always the highest possible quality of fibers and sewing. So those are the 3 things we've always stuck with. The whole idea is we can engineer something for people that fits what they need for their sleep and their life. And then we can make it look like anything. And so that's how we came to where we are today.
What a story. You meant to do linen business.
I think so. And I love it. So here we are.
Why is it important to have a quality linens?
Well, it's as you mentioned, we spend a third of our life in bed at least, if we're lucky. I mean, some people work more than that and don't get that time, but it's really important. And sleep is such an important part of our health and our well-being, both mentally and physically. Your body cleans itself and resets itself in those vital times of sleeping. And everything from your kidneys to your liver to your brain processing everything you've gone through and learned that day, and helping, if you really get good sleep and clarity about your sleep, your brain figures things out while you're sleeping for you. So that when you wake up, you've got solutions that, I know you're a designer, I am too. Most of the interiors I've done, I've dreamed. It's really candy. You wake up in the morning and you're like, okay, now I know what to do with that room. So that's really important. Also, why linens are important is having what fits you and what makes you comfortable is so important. Lots of what's out there, and almost everyone knows about this. You get some linens, they feel really good when you first get them. They're nice to the touch, they're great. And then, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks later, they're starting to feel rough. They're starting to fall apart. And that's because most linens are treated with chemicals to make them very, very soft when you first get them. And then as you wash those chemicals out, or you absorb them into your skin while you're sleeping, our skin is our largest organ, and it opens wide up at night to release things, but it also absorbs everything around you. So having chemical-free sheeting and beds is so important. And I know we touched a little bit on mattresses, which is a whole nother league of importance of things that I know a lot about at this point, and what your mattress toppers are. And, all of that, on top of the fact that we lose over a liter of water a night on average, And where does that evaporate? And do you have a system with your bedding to have that evaporate? So there's all that important stuff. But the quality of linens really affects and helps you sleep. It can be to the negative or to the positive. And I think that's the most important. And also your quality of down and mattress is right. What you're using for blankets, all those things tie in very, very tightly together to make a unified system to help you sleep.
And I understand there's a different type of qualities and fabrics in sheets. Would you tell us what are differences? Do they serve different purpose or functions?
Oh, absolutely. And they do. Obviously I'm a textile geek completely. So I got all excited about this stuff. And I've learned so much along the way. I didn't study textiles. I grew up in a family. My mother made couture clothing. My father had a men's made to measure suit company in Germany. My mom had it in Minnesota. And so the first thing I remember learning about is textiles, but I didn't learn about bedding textiles until I was working with Barbara Olson. And, before that, I just knew what I liked, the way it looked. And I started buying bed linens for myself in actually, I chose my first set when I was 6. But so this has been a passion building up. But some of the really interesting things I've learned along the way that, Egyptian cotton is a big tag word that's used all the time. We tag it for our products. And Egyptian cotton is a varietal. It's like saying Chardonnay, Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm in Sonoma, so obviously wine reference is easy for me. It's a varietal. It can be grown anywhere in the world, and it is. China grows Egyptian cotton. India grows Egyptian cotton. Egypt grows Giza 87, which is the finest of the Egyptian cottons. It's very limited in quantity. It's often mismarketed that it's being used because if you look at the quantity of what's being sold as Giza, of the top 2 Gizas, there's not that much grown. So that's another little catch. It's very expensive. So that's thing. But the finest, so there's 38 grades of Egyptian cotton. Of just Egyptian cotton alone, there's lots of cottons. And so Giza 87 is the finest. It's the benefits to that are that it's the longest fibers, it's the thinnest fibers, and it's the softest fibers. So it's very strong. It can be a high thread count and still be very breathable. And it's going to last the longest because where sheets break down is at the end of the fibers. So if you think about a less expensive sheet that starts peeling more quickly, you can actually kind of tell how long the fibers are by how close together the pilling is. So what the pilling is where the fibers are coming up and poking up. And then your body's rubbing against them and breaks those fibers down. So the shorter the fibers, the more little ends there are to break down. And it's one of the reasons that ironing your sheets makes them last much, much longer. Hotels don't just iron their sheets so that it's a better experience for you to be sleeping on what's normally really low quality sheets. It's so they'll last longer. Not only do they feel so much better when you iron them, and we could talk about that later. I have lots of tips on care. But the other things with that, there's some things you can't get around. 5 o'clock shadow or really harsh shaved hair is like little razor blades, and it will cut the fibers. So the stronger the fibers, the better there. But sometimes you'll see like maybe someone has shaved their back and then they don't understand why their sheet is pilling, and it's because of those hairs. So to those clients, I recommend, waxing or laser. I get to know our clients who are doing bigger projects very, very well. We've found out another reason sometimes that pilling happens is some of our clients have been allergic to down or just dust mites. So that's another part of our conversation. But it can be an allergy causing your moisture from your body to be very acidic that can break down your sheets as well. So cotton, they can literally sweep up cotton dust from a factory floor, glue it together, spin it, and call it Egyptian cotton. So, you can really play this game yourself and go to, a really discounting store that has $20 Egyptian cotton sheets and pull them out and feel them next to, an $800 set of Egyptian cotton sheets. And you can feel the difference. It's absolutely, one will feel really, really silky to the point where it feels synthetic. And that's because it's mostly glue. So there's that. Then there's linen, which is, then there's other grades of cotton, like Sea Island cotton is magnificent. It's an American cotton. Fun fact, most of the long staple Egyptian cotton in the world, the longest, is grown in California, New Mexico, and Arizona. And Supima, which is a genetically engineered, very high quality cotton. And we don't process it here in the United States as long staple. We have to send that to Italy to be processed. When there's all these talks about, well, why don't you just make it in America? I would love to. It would take hundreds of millions, if not billions in funding. Lots of American bed companies would like the highest quality bedding to be made in America again. But we sold off all their equipment and we can't do it here. So we now send our cotton to Italy to be processed into long staple and woven, and we buy it back from them. We're very tightly to Italy. I know that there was a tariff suggestion that was going to be 100% on Italian-made linens right before COVID. That would have put us out of business with no alternative to make the same quantity in the United States. So I'm glad that didn't happen. And then there's other fibers. There's biosynthetics that are like, wood fibers, like bamboo sheets, eucalyptus sheets, modal, which is made from birchwood, which is a softer wood. Like ours, we use Lenzing modal, which is responsibly forested trees in Germany that are then made into a wood synthetic. It's a biosynthetic wood fiber in Austria. So it's a totally clean system. So they're not all created equal. Again, just like with cotton, you have to really look at the systems. Bamboo is as hard as fiberglass. It's fantastic for, scaffolding in Asia. You see it everywhere, scaffolding, because it's as hard as steel. To break bamboo down into textiles, to be soft enough to be textiles, it uses 20 times more water than growing and making cotton. So it's something people don't think about. Yes, bamboo grows at a much faster rate with less water than cotton, but to get it soft enough requires an enormous amount of resources. Most use a lot of chemicals to do that process. It's very few people that are doing bamboo that's chemical free. So those are some things to think about. Like, what is your original state of your fiber? You look at silk. I mean, it's so magnificent that it's made perfectly by nature to be soft. Cotton comes off in little puff balls. It's made perfectly by nature. One of the ones that's this craziness that humans ever even figured it out is flax, which is linen. And the finest linen is grown in Belgium, and that's what we use. It's this amazingly complicated, expensive process to make it. It's got to be pounded out. It's got to sit out in the rain and the sun, and it's got to be in the right climate. But when it comes out, linen is incredibly strong, very long lasting. It's so breathable, and it's aquaphobic. So it allows our moisture to pass through better. So if you're doing a house somewhere humid or like Hawaii, or you're just a hot, humid person, linen is going to be your best bet. The problem has been, it wrinkles, yes. The Germans have a great phrase that means linen wrinkles nobly. In that process, for some people, it's too rough. I'm a sateen sleeper. So in this process, we've worked with our mills to make a finer, softer linen. So now we have one called Charlotte that's very, very fine. And then it goes through this crazy process in this machine that's a room with like air, and it's called air tumbled, and it just gets beat up. So it's aging. And so our Charlotte air tumbled linen is very, very soft. It's as soft and fine as you can get out there. But that's a preference. I mean, the royal families of England, and the aristocracy in England historically had the help sleep on their linens for 30 years for the linens before they went upstairs so that they'd be broken in. I know. And so now we're doing that with a big machine instead. So there's that. So there's lots of things like that. I find that the biosynthetics don't breathe as well as they're promoted to. They also don't last very long. We have the micromodal because some of our clients absolutely adore it. And I sleep on it as my pillowcases because, like silk, it's better for your skin and your hair. I'm not a purist on having like my whole sets match. I have my pillowcases be what I want them to be. I have my, bottom sheet be what I want it to be, and my top sheet. And I engineer the bed so it's comfortable and it looks great. I make my bed and you would never know that different components of my bed are made up of different fibers. It's probably a 3-hour conversation. So I'll leave you be there.
Heather, can you talk about thread count?
Oh, absolutely. That's one of the great misuses in marketing for textiles, for sure. The company that really got that going deeply regrets doing that now, actually. Anyway, thread count is just a mathematical number. It seems very straightforward, but it involves 3 dimensions, for lack of a better description. So it's how many threads are going in the warp, how many threads are going in the weft. Those are the 2 directions on the loom per square inch. But it's not that simple, because it's also the number calculated in is the fineness of the thread. So each thread has their own number, from like 20 to 120. And so those numbers get involved. And so you can work around and change thread counts significantly, and they feel totally different. They breathe completely differently. I mean, we have a Giza 87 per kale, which is a plain weave, straight over under, like the shirt I'm wearing. That is so fine. The fibers are so fine that the 500 thread count has it's very breathable. It's a very light fabric. And then even just 2 grades down of cotton, we have our essentials per kale, 500 thread count, and it's a much more thickly, they're almost the same thread size, almost. But just because of the fiber, they're a more solid, thick thing. So it's really, and lots of companies lie about their thread counts. That's one of the things to be aware. If something says a true 1,000 thread count at a price under $2,000 a set is going to be a true one. Is not going to breathe. It is going to be so solid. There's no air that's going to go through, and you're going to be way too hot. Almost anybody is going to be way too hot, and it's not going to be comfortable. Because you really need airflow. So most of what people, when they come to me and say, "Oh, well, I have, 1,000 count thread sheets and so, more likely than not, they're like 100, and they're between 125 and maybe 250 thread count sheets. They're just lying about it. And those companies make so much money selling 1,000 thread count or 1,200 thread count sheets for under $200 that they're able to keep class action lawsuits or lawsuits about it in court for. One of them has 2 of them I know of have been in court for 20 years, and they're perfectly happy having it just keep going because, they make so much money doing it. So it's a buyer beware, and it's really that higher thread count isn't necessarily better. It goes back to that, are you a hot sleeper? Then you got to really make sure, if you're going to have a high thread count and you're a warm sleeper, that you have the finest possible fibers making up that thread count so that you have enough air going through. Otherwise, you really want to step down your thread count or switch to a linen, which has a whole different system of thread count that is, it's really linen. We really look at gram weight. So it's very different, but thread count is kind of created to confuse people within our line, even, because we have the Giza 87 and then the rest of our cotton is really, it's like the 3rd grade down, which is phenomenal. Like out of 38 grades of cotton, it's phenomenal. We don't even have apples to apples, right? You have to compare our ones below those 2 Giza 87s to each other, and then you can tell thread count to thread count, because then you're using the same fibers, thread count. And then our Giza 87s, one's a percale, one's a sateen. They're 2 different weaves. Sateen is 3 over, 1 under. Or 4 over, 1 under. It's one-sided and it's directional. And it's also, the threads have been treated to have a sheen. That sheen washes out over time, but it's so that you can't even compare because they're 2 different weaves. Sateen doesn't tend to breathe as easily. I'm a sateen girl, like 100%. Until I get too hot, and then I'm trying to get our linen to the point where I love it. In the middle of summer, I love it, but our new Giza 87 percale, which is called Sophia, is my new favorite for summer. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. So part of it is I'm constantly testing our things and seeing what really works, what doesn't work, and talking to our clients to figure all of that out. One of my favorite things, though, is a lot of our British clients who went to boarding school and slept on very rough sheets love our Jennifer linen, which is too rough of a linen for me, but it is a very good seller for us, for mainly gentlemen who went to English boarding school, public schools. And so I've always found that funny. I mean, all around the world, there's such different tastes and what people need and what people prefer and what's practical for their lives, you know?
So it sounds like it depends on your body temperature. You actually should change different kind of sheets for different kind of weather and seasons.
Absolutely. And that's often not accounted for. And also when I was doing interior design in the South, I had my firm in Fayetteville, Arkansas for a couple years, and the Southerners are great at it. And partially because their seasons are so significantly different, but they buy often 3 seasons of whole bed sets, and it's really wise. So yeah, you can have summer sets and winter sets. You know, San Francisco is peculiar in and of itself, that, you know, you probably need more. Everyone else's summer weight sets would be spring and fall. And then the summer, you probably need winter weight. And then, you know, except for a few nights, I mean, because of the fog. But yeah, so we help people through that and kind of do a little questionnaire, like, where is the house? Are you hot? You know, are they hot? When are you? A lot of people have multiple houses. Like, when are you using this house and for what purpose? And so, yeah, having different sets for different seasons is very smart.
How many sets do you recommend people to have at the household, and how often do they have to rotate?
Well, we recommend rotation we always recommend people buy at least an extra 2 pillowcases for sleeping, because they wear out the most quickly, because of face products, hair products, and like I mentioned, the aforementioned 5 o'clock shadow, especially if you're doing colors other than white, because even though our colors are very strong and very well dyed by master dyers in Italy, so they stay very color fast, they're going to fade a little bit. I mean, our public water has chlorine in it. Unless you're completely filtering your water for your whole household so that there's no chlorine left in it, your linens are going to fade a little bit over time. And so that's number one. Number two, ideally you have 3 of each sheet set that you're using at a time. One of our clients put it perfectly. You know, you have one on the bed, you have one in the closet for emergencies, and you have one at the cleaners, or you have one being washed. All of our linens, except for our cashmere, are machine washable. And so that's handy, but things come up, things happen, they're bed linens, you know, people have kids, you know, we all have bodies and all that good stuff. So you really want to have a backup set at home. I know affordability wise, that's not for everybody, but at least 2 sets with extra pillowcases is what we recommend.
What if people have pets? Do you have any recommendation on that?
It's like our number one question we hear from people. They're like, well, my cat really likes cashmere. That's fine. You know, the stronger the fibers, the better you are with your pets. There's certain fibers we definitely don't recommend. Like, we have a really fine silk and cotton that we found cats can really get their claws into. I wouldn't recommend that one with dogs on your sheets. If your pets are really on top of your bed, we've done specific coverlets for people. So they've had their whole own bedding how they wanted it underneath. And then we've done like cotton matelassé, or we have this beautiful heavy cotton that can be tumbled or not. The tumbled's a little softer, called Carneros. And it's a heavy gram weight linen, and it's tough. So your pets can be on that just fine. It can be washed. It's all fine. I mean, one of my dear friends, who's a client, had a dog. Sadly, the dogs have passed now, but they were massive dogs. And she's this little tiny woman, and she had the most beautiful white and ivory sheets. And we just did, and she had a cashmere duvet cover for the winter, and we just put this coverlet all over it, and the dog slept in the bed and everything was fine. And the bedding still looks fantastic. The coverlet looks a little worse for wear, but it only goes on at night. And then during the day, her bed is this beautiful ivory and white, display bed. Cats, especially with the kneading, is something you don't want to use fabrics that can be snagged. So we have a really cool basket weave that's alpaca and lamb's wool. I would never recommend that. Like I said, our cashmere, which we do for blankets and throws and duvet covers and pillow shams, I don't recommend with pets. They tend to go straight for it. They love it. They knead on it. And it's not as easily cleaned. I mean, what I do with my cashmere bedding is I wash it and then send it to the cleaners when it needs sprucing up. But my dog has passed. He passed at 16. And so he's no longer on my bedding. But it's easy. And people tend to not take care of themselves when they have pets. Like they get inferior linens because of their pets. And there's no need for that. The linens we make are strong, and we have great, like beautiful, strong, tightly woven jacquards that can be for a duvet cover. Totally great with pets. So, unless your pet is older and maybe sick, or maybe while your pet's a puppy, if they're on your bed, then maybe do something else during those 2 times. But otherwise, if your pet is a healthy pet, we can help you with that and work around what works so that you can have nice bedding for yourself and your pet can still sleep with you.
Talk about pets. Can you talk about how to clean the sheets and also how to taking care of our downs and cashmere?
Oh, absolutely. I have learned so much from all sorts of people in this process, from the designers who buy from us, from some of our clients, to teaching me little tricks that they've come across and me trying it. And everyone, in case of a dire emergency, needs a really good laundered, dry clean professional available. I want to lead with that. We've had some clients call us where whoever was washing the sheets way over dried their sheets. I would say that's the number one no. So consider yourself. You're a natural. You're all natural. Your linen is natural. Cotton is natural. Cashmere is natural. You wouldn't want to be stuck in the dryer too long, so don't ever, my recommendation number one is don't over dry. Don't dry your things too hot and pull them out just before they're dry. We've all felt sheets that have been in the dryer so long that they're stiff. It's hard to come back from that. They actually have to kind of be recuperated. One of the things you can do is keep washing it and cool, and then barely dry it, put it in with a cloth with some organic olive oil, like 6 or 7 drops on a cloth in there, and soften it back up over time. Because if you can't send it to a good laundry, like Alex dry cleaners who deliver and pick up for free in the Bay Area have rescued so many of our clients' sheets and my clothes for that matter. But that's your last, they can, if you have it in your budget, you can go to a good dry cleaner. We're happy to recommend them all over the world. And they can maintain the sheets for you. But most people wash their linens at home. Ideally not an agitator washer. That's the one with like the top layer that goes whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. They're not made anymore. But that's one of the hardest things on your clothes and your bed linens. So either a front loader or a top loader without an agitator, number one. Number one's not over drying. Number 2 is a washing machine without an agitator. 3 is cool water. Don't wash your linens on too hot. It's just like the dryer. I mean, you can do them on warm periodically. Really hold back on the chlorine bleach. OxyClean, oxygen bleach, that sort of thing is good if you want to brighten up your whites or even your light colors. Another huge thing is perfumes and dyes. So they damage the fibers. So there's lots of detergents on the market now. There weren't when I started this company, that are very, very clean. Go with your organic but still stay away from the scents. The scents have a lot of chemicals in them. And stay away from fabric softeners. If you really, because what fabric softener does is not only soften up the fibers, but it can change breathability of the fibers because it kind of fills up the holes. So if you really want a little fabric softener, and that's what that hint was taught to me by Thomas Shoes, who's a phenomenal interior designer in LA, is the clean cloth with a little bit of olive oil and then maybe a drop of lavender essential oil. And then you can toss that in the dryer. But again, pull it out before it's all the way dry. Everyone gets stains from their pets and themselves on their beds. It just happens. You cut yourself and you've bled. Most stains are protein based, when they come from human bodies or animal bodies. And the best thing for that is hydrogen peroxide. So what I recommend is people have a bottle of hydrogen peroxide at home, and just put it on a cotton ball and just squeeze it right on whatever happened. Ideally before it gets wiped. Often you've slept on it, you didn't know it was there. So whatever, do what you can at that point. If you're someone who sends their sheets out to laundry, then just don't mess with it. Don't touch it. Just send it out immediately. If you do it at home, then as soon as you can, put the hydrogen peroxide on there and let it sit there. If you're kind of a science geek, it can be fascinating to watch because it really just eats it up. Then you can put some more on. And then usually, if you're talking about blood, it'll have a little bit of a ring left around the space that had the blood. And with that, then you can use a stain stick, Black Mountain Beauty has a really good one that's paper free, that's really healthy. And you can get that online. And you rub the stain stick into the parts that are still there and then wash it in cold. And then before you put it in the dryer with your detergent to pull it out, make sure it's all gone. You may have to wash it 2 or 3 times to get it all the way out. But once you dry something, you've set the stain. So that's the key, is you want to make sure it's all the way up before it goes in the dryer. I mean, the best way to dry your sheets, if you have it, and it's California, it's a rare commodity because, we've been in drought for so long and we don't have lawns. But if you have white sheets, putting your sheet out on the lawn after you put it in the dryer, not for too long. Again, it can get over dried in the sun. There's a cool process that happens between the sun and the grass that makes your whites this heavenly white. And of course, your sheets are lawn fresh. And I mean, that's just a total treat. If you can't do that, air drying them again out in the sun, they're going to fade. So it really only works for white sheets. Or you can hang them out in the air in the shade if you have colors. And then you don't have to so worry about them over drying, but the sun's a powerful tool. So, use it wisely. Those are some of the things. Our cashmere, like I said, there's lots of washers now that have ultra hand wash or even cashmere cycle. So you can do our cashmere in there and then air dry it. You've kind of got to block it out and lay it flat to dry it over a towel, let's say. And then what I do, because we have cashmere wraps and cashmere ponchos, and you've seen one of them, but those I just wash on a regular basis. And then once in a while, depending on how much I've been using them, especially when I'm flying a lot with them, because I wear the poncho on the plane, is I'll send it off to be dry cleaned at a really good cleaners, however often I need it. Usually it's quarterly if I'm traveling a lot, or twice a year, or maybe even once a year, and just spruce it back up again. And then I wash it at home again. As I mentioned, ironing is one of the best things you can do for your linens. Anyone who's tried to iron their sheets on an ironing board knows how hard that is. So I don't recommend it. If you're lucky enough to have a house that's incredibly well set up for laundry, that's fantastic. I've seen some of the best laundry rooms. One of the best laundry rooms I saw was on a huge yacht, I just almost cried. The laundry room was so amazing. But I've learned a lot from yacht stewardesses. I mean, they've got cramped quarters. They don't have a lot of places to manage all these things that have to be on the boat. So I've learned a lot about home care from the stews. And so couple tricks. You can always, if you don't have a feather bed, you can always iron your linens on the bed. they don't have to be perfect. It's about, especially with bottom fitted sheets, the hardest part to iron is that sides. They don't, and unless that's showing and you care, then just iron the top part. And you just get an extension cord and your iron, you can do it on your bed. Same with the pillowcases. Pillowcases, it's much better for your skin and your hair if they're ironed, and they're very quick to iron, especially if you're pulling them out of the dryer when they're still a little wet, and use a spray bottle, and it smooths them out, makes them better all the way around. The trick I use is if you have a stone or a tile countertop, a peninsula or an island in your kitchen or somewhere else in your house, throw a blanket over that, and then you could fold your top sheet in half or in quarters, depending on how much space you have, or your sheets, and just iron them on the island. It's a nice height. It's much easier than doing it on your bed, and it's so fast. And you can do your pillowcases. Your pillowcases are just flat. You just iron them. It's totally easy. So thank you to the Stews. They've also taught me lots of tricks of how to put pillows in pillowcases, and 2 different methods that are now my go-tos. And once again, the best ally you can possibly have is a good cleaner that can pick up from you same day in case of emergencies. Or, you can call a good local cleaner. They're not all created equal. You've got to really watch, if you're getting your cleaning back that's white and is getting gray, it means they're reusing with the dirty water. So the dry cleaners that get your whites white, they're using clean water. So the whole old myth that, well, I don't like dry cleaning my whites because they get gray, that's because it's not a good cleaners. So they do exist. We've got a couple in the Bay Area. We're very lucky. And then I've learned through my clients around the country where other good ones are. So you can use us as a resource for that. But that, I have lots of clients who now have set up, even if they're just people who have 1 or 2 sets of basic sheets from us, who set up with their cleaners, or 2 sets, I would say, or more, to have their linens picked up once a week to be washed and ironed. And they've negotiated a fee because of being returning customers. So what the dry cleaners might quote on their website may not hold true if you do a contract to commit to a long-term relationship with them. And then they're there for you in case of an emergency too. And a couple of the other little things that I've learned over time that are sheet killers: feet that need pedicures, snaggled toenails. And a lot of guys are like, oh, I don't need a pedicure. I don't need to take care of my toes. Well, I can't tell you how many sheets we've replaced that were torn up down where men's feet were. And I'm not excluding women in this category, but it's, for the most part, it's been men. So having your toenails well groomed will help a lot. And your fingernails, for that matter. A lot of people also sit down with sharp things in their pants and have torn their linens. Oh, another one that's always happens to bedding, happens to me on a regular basis, is pens. Ink. I write in my journal in bed, fallen asleep more than once with my pen in my bed. And that one is rubbing alcohol. And it's another cool science experiment. So you put a clean cloth under the sheet or pillowcase, whatever it is. And then you put rubbing alcohol, you pour it over. You can do it with a cotton ball if you don't trust yourself, or just pour it on. And it's so cool. It transfers the ink down through the sheet into the cloth. And there you have it. Yeah. So all sorts of, there's also, I know they sold the company, so I haven't been keeping as much eye on them, but back when they started it, when it was the 2 ladies, the Laundress is a company that has lots of good insights on laundry. Another thing to keep in mind is lots of these heavy bed covers and heavy duvet covers. Well, they're very hard to move around. And even if you're having turn down service and those are being taken off so you can sleep, lots of people are like, well, we have help. Well, I implore you to care for the health of your help, because for the most part, these are small women that are taking these. I mean, some of the bed covers I've taken off are 50 to 70 pounds. Be kind. And if you want your housekeeper to last longer as a human being and to be able to care for you if you're being totally self-centered about it, then doing these duvet covers and bed covers out of fabrics that aren't meant for bedding, aside from the fact that they can't be laundered and they don't breathe right, if you're not sleeping in them, please care for the people caring for them. It's one of my biggest things. That's about it. Steaming things works as well. Starch is the enemy of fabrics. I know a lot of people like them starched, but starch breaks down fibers. So be very careful with that again. And starch will fill up the holes and make things not as breathable. So, and your water quality is another huge one. We're up here in wine country. We've done linens for lots of people who have, not necessarily here, anywhere, that have well water. You've got to make sure your well water is very well processed. We've had some sheets just disintegrate and we couldn't figure out what it was. And we finally figured it out. They had sediment in their water. So basically the sheets were getting washed with sand. One of the biggest things that we've learned, like I said, we've been learning as we've going in these 22 years about care and how people use linens and how they care, the whole process we've talked about up until now. But well water is one that really comes up again and again. And that is, we had some sheets that came back that were like disintegrated, that we've, the same sheets I had slept on for 10 years and still look perfect. I still have my top sheet from 20 years ago. And so it's the softest thing and it's incredible. So it was really strange to see that. And then another couple months later, a similar thing happened. And, my first thought was it a badly woven lot of fabric? And then I realized they were totally two different fabrics. So I started digging in with those two clients. One was in Napa, one was in Sonoma Valley, to say like, what's the commonality here? And it turned out they had well water and their water was very hard, which meaning it had like, not just minerals, but it had silt in it. Like it basically had sand. Those sheets were being washed in the washing machine with sand and just totally eviscerated the fabric. So if you have well water, it's not just that it's annoying to have hard water that leaves marks, in your sinks and things, but it's hard on your fibers if you're doing your laundry at home, which most people do. So recommend having a very good filtration system for your house to get out that silt and stuff. And if you're not going to do that, then send those linens out of your house. Your finer fibers need to not be washed in your washing machine if you want them to last more than 6 months. So, our linen should last, our linen, the flax should last 20, 30 years. And some of our clients wash them every day and iron them every day. They're not going to last as long. They'll last 10 years. One of our clients only sleeps on our Charlotte linen. And she said, I asked her for a quote. She said, well, they're good. They don't tear and they feel heavenly. So I was like, okay. Cotton's softer fiber. It's going to break down sooner. We have a cotton and silk that's going to last longer as long as it's not in the sun, because silk is incredibly strong until it's exposed to sun for long periods of time. So if you have a sunny bedroom, don't go for the silk, that sort of thing.
Those are all good information for our listeners.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad to help.
Yes, I do like to know, how can we purchase your beddings?
Well, that's a fun thing. Right now, you can go to our website, which is Kearsley Couture. And for designers, they can go to the button that says trade and register as a trade account. And then we have a digital sample book. We can help them walk through their projects. If you're a private client, we are now have just launched our new shopping cart. And you can go in and buy them by sets. I've created them by locations around the world. So it's been a really fun experiment. We had gotten to the point where we'd gotten a little too ethereal and out there after doing some very, very haute couture projects that had gotten a lot of press. And before COVID, people would just call us, or I'd go to their homes and we'd meet and I'd create linens for them, which we do. I mean, we charge for that, but that's something we can do. We've been flown places to create linens for people. So that's our highest end option. And then we have daily essential options on the website. And each one of the collections benefits a charity in that area of wherever it is in the world. Had some really fun collaborations. One of the ones I'm working on right now is with Captain Sean Meager, who did the Northwest Passage both ways. And he's a phenomenal photographer. And so is the owner of the boat. And, that's in some really endangered territory in there. And so we're doing one for Resolute Bay based on the beautiful photographs they took. So those colorways and, these collections start out, I think, about $600 a set. And these are sheets that last you, 10 years, if cared for properly, obviously, or more. It's really fun. So we've made it more simple. You can always write us, and, Kearsley at kearsleyhome.com is our email. Or you can write me personally. It's Heather at kearsleyhome.com with questions about what's perfect for you. And I'm working on a way to help clients on our website without having to talk to one of us, steer into what's best for them, where they're living, what they need it for, etc. We also do, and we'll have it on there, but it'll be the Nantucket collection white sheets are our go-to. They're our entry-level 300 sateen. We've done lots of those for people's Airbnbs and rentals. And so, we're known for our very high-end, like royal crib blankets and super complicated projects we've done for yachts and jets and people's homes. The main part of our business is really just getting people one or two, three or four nice sets of sheets for their home that they can enjoy and their families can enjoy. And so we've been making that over the last few months more and more simple, and so that we're more accessible. We do a design discount of 30% for the interior design trade.
Do you have a showrooms?
We are shown in a few places. We are at Lita Austin Foster in Palm Beach on Worth Avenue. We are shown in New York. And so and we're also shown in San Francisco. So you can see all that on our website. And as that changes, you can go to the Contact Us section of our website and see where we're available. We also are happy to send people cuttings and samples for them to feel. And also the colors, of course, as you know, digital colors are never quite exact. It depends on your monitor, how they're calibrated, et cetera, how well a graphic designer matched a color to a fabric. So, if people are looking at colors, we always recommend that they request a cutting sample, and those are available in our shopping carts as well. So anywhere we're selling the fabrics in a collection, those colors are available to purchase a cutting, and we can send them out. If it's a designer, that's free. We have lots of wonderful repeat clients that we've done lots of things for. And so it's a fun, we actually tend to get to know our clients quite well and taking care of them. So we're here if you need us.
Thank you so much, Heather. That was very informative.
Thank you.